Welcome back to MB Capital Strategies. Today we're going to talk about a slightly different topic. Specifically, it's about my vision and how much I expect to receive in dividends by the year 2035, and what visions and future projects I also have planned until then. Let's take a closer look at all of this today. So to start, my current portfolio value is 81,194 euros, with 72,000 euros invested, 173 euros and 68 cents. Current unrealized share price gain of 7,870 euros. A tender interest rate with 16% dividends of 5,226 euros and a realized loss of 699 euros and 70 cents. My strategy is the healing strategy. I would like to receive approximately amount of return on my invested capital per year. Receive an 8% dividend. The higher the better, of course. And how do I achieve that? My core assets here are shipping, energy, so in upstream and also in midstream like pipelines, these are the areas I am represented in. Naturally, I want to buy at the lowest point to massively increase my yield on cost, which I have already managed to do in part. For example, with Zim or other positions, among others. For example, with Fresnillo, the dividend yield is usually 1%. Here, my yield on cost is 10% on my invested capital. That's roughly my strategy. The value of my portfolio, or rather, my invested capital, is currently at 72,173.68. As most people who follow my portfolio updates know, in 2026, that is this year, I will receive a dividend of 5,824 euros and 10 cents. At least that's what's being calculated here. I am currently reinvesting all dividends and investing about 800 euros per month in the stock market. Primarily, as I said, in dividend stocks. So let's go ahead and take a look at my forecast here as well. That's exactly what I just mentioned earlier. The savings rate is about 800 euros per month, which amounts to 9,600 euros per year. The current dividend yield is about 7.2%. My goals for 2026 are for my annual dividend to rise above 6,000 euros, and that by the end of 2026, I will receive about 500 euros per month. The target portfolio value is between 90,000 and 95,000 euros. And reinvesting will definitely remain mandatory, and it will continue to be mandatory, probably until around 2035. Before then, I won't touch my portfolio. Exactly, my focus will continue to be on energy, shipping, commodities, mining, and selectively on infrastructure. And also REITs will be included. REITs probably more towards the end of 2026. So I want to take advantage of the current weakness quickly. I want to buy when others are complaining. Basically an old stock market saying. I want to buy when there's blood in the streets. My personal projects or goals, at some point I want dividends to permanently finance my travels. The goal behind this is simple. Cash flow should decouple me from a full-time job or, in general, from any job where I have to rely on other factors. My dividend projection until 2035, I see this as a conservative estimate, not including special dividends, which for example occur regularly in shipping. Starting in 2026, as I said, 5,824, savings rate 9,600, dividend growth of about 6%, most people talk about 7%. My tax setup is already included here as well. So capital gains tax and also church tax are included in my tax setup here. That means capital gains tax and also church tax are roughly, though not exactly, calculated here, so both gross and net dividends. For the year 2026, we have 5,800 euros per year. Net, that's about 4,455 gross. Per month, that's 483 euros and 371 euros per month. In 2028, that's 8,500 euros, 6,400 euros net per year, and 708 euros gross, and 533 euros net per month. My actual goal is to receive about 800 euros in net dividends per month by 2030. As mentioned, 1,000 euros tax allowance and 100% reinvestment. And as I said, special dividends are not included here, just as dividend cuts, which of course also happen, are not included either. So my goal for 2035, according to the current projection, I will be at about net between 1,500 and 1,800 euros in net dividends. That's the current status of my dividends. Forecast, what else do I generally have planned? Of course, YouTube will continue to be developed as well. My goal is perhaps even by 2028 or 2029 through the income I might generate from YouTube. Currently, I can't yet since I'm not monetized because I still have fewer than 1,000 subscribers. Maybe even switch to part-time work and simply prioritize YouTube more. As you know, I also have ongoing series. Some of them are actually doing very well, at least in part. For example, the commodity supercycle, all the mining series I have here, the pipeline series, the BTC comparison, and more to come. What you all really seem to enjoy are the portfolio updates. That's pretty much all I have to say about YouTube for now. Of course, there will also be collaborations and podcasts. So in the future, I also want to get more involved in podcasts, although that's actually not really relevant for YouTube. But I just want to ultimately build a larger ecosystem. As you know, I've already started a collaboration with Alcatopo. We'll see who else might join in and what develops from that. I'll just quickly go through all my current situations. As you know, I also have a blog post. This is currently my website. It's called mbcapitalstrategies.com. Pretty much everything is linked here, including what I talk about a bit on YouTube. In some cases, it's even a bit better integrated here, I would say, also with the supporting documents. Here you'll also find current discounts from affiliate partners, for example. Also, top tools that I use myself are listed here, with affiliate links included. There are also financial calculators and simulations here, so if you ever want to calculate something, feel free to use them. For example, the Dividend Noble Pro. If we enter a starting capital, the monthly savings rate, the dividend growth, which as I said is usually between 6 and 7%, you can enter your own tax rate and just enter the price growth and the period you want to invest for. And then you can just go ahead and get started, so you can see for yourself how much this can scale over time. Exactly, so as I said, this is really just to generally increase visibility, simply to show more presence in the entire ecosystem, just on Google. Here my portfolio strategy is also briefly explained again, or at least outlined. So that's what it's about. Why do I generally invest so heavily in hard assets? What makes us not convinced about it? Exactly, for example, the commodity supercycle is also fully documented here. So that's actually what I ultimately cover on YouTube as well. A commodity supercycle. Here, everything is linked again. Why and for what reasons I believe in a commodity supercycle. Exactly, so this is just briefly my website. If you have any questions or anything like that, or if I use any words you don't understand, because there are a lot of technical terms, you can find everything I talk about in my glossary. Feel free to take a look there, or search for it however you like. For example, FCF. And then you'll find what you're looking for accordingly. Then, under toolboxes, you'll find all my affiliate partners that I use. If you purchase through my affiliate link, you can also get some benefits. And here, as mentioned, are all my blog posts again, which I link on YouTube, also structured here with the most important key points. And simply once more, the video itself. Ultimately linked here. Exactly, please don't take it the wrong way. I'm doing all of this completely on my own, and I have a full-time job just like many others, and I do this entirely on the side. So in a way, I have a full-time job on top of my full-time job. That means the podcasts are now also available here, for example, Finance Feuer Talk. Exactly, so if anything isn't 100% correct, I'm always on it and will make sure to correct everything. Where I'm also actually linked is on investing.com. I'm listed there as well. All my reports are linked there too, so to speak, because Investing Pro is my affiliate partner. With my link, you also get a 15% discount, long story short. And then you'll also be able to access all the videos, or rather all the posts on investing.com as well. I'm now represented there too, just so you can see how it all works. This gives you an idea of what I'm doing behind the scenes and what I might be planning. So if you just want to read something, you're welcome to do so on my website as well. That's it for now. It's also divided into topics such as shipping, pipelines, energy, mining stocks, high yield stocks, and so on and so forth. So it's very detailed, as you can see. Where else am I working behind the scenes? Behind the scenes, I'm actually also working on the map. On my own complete portfolio dashboard, as I said, I really have nothing to do with IT or software development. That means I read up on everything myself, of course, now also with the help of the CHP team, just so you're aware. I haven't learned or studied any of this formally. Here is my portfolio overview with the official dividend. And what also matters and finally costs something is, which for me is simply of great importance because I want my yield and cost is higher than the official dividend yield. Exactly, so I'm constantly working on optimizing all of this. Not everything has been entered yet, of course, but at some point you just have to start and see where the journey takes you. And does it even work the way I imagine it, and can you actually work with it? Then, of course, it's super important for us investors to know the most important news of the day or from the company. Here, for example, it's generally about, let's say, pharmaceutical companies and also in general where money is flowing, so to speak. Then Genko Shipping Trading rejects non-binding indicative proposal from Diana Shipping. There was a takeover attempt which was initially rejected. And as an investor, you simply have to know where the important information is, what's happening in the background with your stocks. Especially if you have a larger amount invested, it can, I would say, ultimately have a significant impact. For example, Riley has now set a dividend of 40 cents for 2026. And that's something you simply need to know in the end. Exactly, so that's all I have to say about that. Then, regarding charts and analytics, I'm still working on that. That's currently not working at the moment, so here I have the current market cycles. So to speak, here I can see that WTI had an increase just like Brent, as well as commodities, gold and copper. I just have all of this here at a glance, so to speak, without having to open 10 different pages to get any information, and then here also my shipping information. You can really notice how that adjusts, especially with containers and SIM. Over the past 3 months, it's gone up by 69%. I actually noticed that with SIM integrated shipping and also because of the distributions. So, what's currently cheap here? So, the tech sector is cheap, energy is cheap, industry is cheap. Materials, staples, discretionary, and health, as well as utilities, rates, and financials, yes. It's mixed, and here you can also see, so to speak, the cash flows, then the storage and shipping cycle. I still need to revise all of this here. Tanker core transition, you can see the increase again selectively and why the rates are what they are, so how high the inventory level is. Ultimately though, it's when the inventory level is lower or at a low level. It's also a sign that they need to be replenished again, and as a result, prices might also rise. Here I also want to give a strong overall conclusion, namely that dividends are probably due to increased freight rates. That's roughly how I would ultimately like to see it and have it as well. Then I also looked at a dividend. I created, or I'm currently in the process of creating, a dividend overview. Of course, it's not all finalized yet, it's just a draft. And as starting points, I have the amount per share. Here I also want to make sure that all my dividend stocks are included along with the respective number of shares. I don't just want the declared sum, but really the total amount that I actually hold. And here too, it will be calculated monthly, including the 4-year growth, so that you can roughly plan things out and don't have to keep creating new formulas all the time. And further dividend analyses are planned here as well, such as dividend growth. If a stock has shown very good growth over 5 or 10 years, for example, but in some cases you should be cautious here. Then there's the dividend safety score. Is the dividend really, let's say, coming from a sustainable setup, or is it currently eating up the last bit of free cash flow? Then the volatility is simply calculated. And then there's the hard assets dividend stability radar. How stable is the dividend at the moment, and when might it be at risk? If it drops, is it still considered a core holding and therefore always very good? And let's say on average maybe around 8%, but currently it's at 3% because commodity prices are low, and here you can also clearly see my yield and cost development. Then I also have my sector analysis here, as I mentioned earlier. Here I can see capital inflows or outflows, or simply when nothing is happening, such as during sideways phases. Capital flow is based on 3-month performance relative to SPDR, and here we have another analysis of the spot, so to speak. Once again, briefly, the key macro results are summarized here. Inflation CPI year over year is at 2.65%, and the money supply was increased to 4.27%. And we have a yield curve of 0.65%, and currently we have a VIX volatility of 16%. Low values below 15 indicate a calm market, high values above 25 indicate stress and risk, and the assessment is that inflation is moderate. Transition phase, M2 is growing, liquidity is supporting the markets. A steep curve indicates stabilization, increased VIX means rising volatility, and the environment favors energy, shipping, high yield, and also value. And that is essentially what I ultimately see as well. And these are, so to speak, my websites that I am currently building or already have publicly available. And that's basically what's going on in the background, so to speak. This is how I keep track of all my positions, or rather, have them all in view at a glance, ultimately. Exactly, we've already discussed the topic of goals and planning. That's actually already, I would say, ultimately clear. In addition to, let's say, my dividend goals, of course, I also have other goals. I also have goals for YouTube. I definitely want to reach 1,000 subscribers by 2026, let's say, and also post regularly. I also want to link blog posts on my website, and of course, there are also personal goals. I want to go to the gym at least 3 times a week just to keep myself fit. And I definitely want to read at least 3 to 4 books a year just to continue educating myself effectively, because personally I find that books have taught me a broad range of knowledge. Of course, not just books, but also further education opportunities, seminars or courses. One should regularly attend these as well, simply to keep learning and not just stay at the current level. Since September 1st, MB Capital Strategies has been a company, a small business, since I received my first payments from my branch partners. On August 28th, I received €256 because someone apparently signed up for a 2-year subscription to Invest in Pro. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank you. Thank you very much for your support of this channel. Of course, I also had expenses, as I mentioned. At the beginning, I also simply ran a YouTube ad to reach a wider audience. That has since been discontinued because I realized that the people behind it aren't really interested. As a result, my target audience was also getting a bit mixed up, and that's why I'm leaving things as they are. This means that the income I receive now will be set aside as reserves and also used to improve and optimize my equipment. I also had expenses because of this, including registering a business, which costs money, specifically €40 here. And here, just to sum up, all the advertising is broken down as well. My website, which I just showed you, mbcapitalstrategies.com, the domain for that also costs money, €18 for 2 years. That's the current state of things. I actually earn money through my website as well, because let's say I run ads there. I also ultimately place ads. And now let's take a look at all of this right here without an ad blocker. So there are ads running on my website and I earn money through these ads. It's just a small amount of money. We're really talking about just a few cents at the moment. Currently, I've had 4 visitors to the site in 7 days. So it's not really an explosion. Of course, it's possible that this could change over time. I mean, I've only just started, so anything is actually possible. My current account balance with Google Ads is €1.64 from my website, as you can see. In the last 7 days, we're talking about 12 cents, comparing the last 7 days to the previous period. 12 page views, page RPM, so with 10,000 views, I would make €9. So we're really talking about amounts in the sense here, but as I said, I'm still in the early stages, and I also want to provide value for you or in general. And that's why there's a bit of advertising, which in the end also generates some income, because I currently don't have any income from YouTube yet, so that's basically still in progress. The website toolbox, which is already official, just like the blog article, YouTube is also still in progress. Exactly what? What else do I have planned? It's actually important, especially when you start earning money, primarily now, of course, through YouTube. I also want to do something good with the money. What good is money to you if you receive money, if you can't do something good with it? So my goal in the YouTube space is also, if I receive money there, to simply do some small good deed as well. I mean, I can't really plan any big events right now, that's just not possible, but everyone can do their part. Personally, I also regularly donate blood because that's ultimately super important too. And I would also like to support smaller organizations like the Water Rescue Service and the Red Cross. I actually mostly do that through donations, once a year. And this year I also want to give something that really, in the end, reaches the people in the community. That means I live in the area between Frankfurt and Würzburg. We have a lot of homeless people in both Frankfurt and Würzburg. And here I thought about maybe just making a larger batch of soup, so to speak. So that means a noodle soup with carrots and vegetables in it. and then just distribute it myself in the end, especially in winter or at the beginning of January and February when it's still really cold. At least to provide a small, warm meal, because then I know it really reaches them. When you give money, you never really know how the money from me, for example, is actually used. So it's important to me that if I receive money, I also want to do something good for people. That's the current situation, what I have planned and where my income comes from. At the moment, my income comes primarily from my full-time job, meaning really only from my full-time job. Everything else is still just wishful thinking at this point. I would like to reach 1,000 subscribers as quickly as possible this year in order to achieve a bit of monetization. I am aware that monetization takes a long time before I can even say that I am earning a decent income from it, or at least be able to cut back a little and finalize or advance other projects. That's something I'm also aware of. I am taking everything one small step at a time. Since I'm working alone and have a demanding full-time professional job, I have to do all of this as a side project running in parallel with my career. I'm trying with a bit more pressure to also set a fair expectation for you as well. That means I want to post at least 2 videos a week so that you are always up to date. When my pipeline series or my playlists in general are finished, more projects will follow. But right now, what's important to me is that I introduce you to all the stocks that I currently have in my portfolio, which are my core positions, because I personally believe, as I said, that we are at the beginning of a commodity supercycle. And I simply want to show what I'm invested in so that you can see most of the time I have, well, let's say, sometimes leading companies in the sector which would probably benefit greatly as a result. Of course, this is not investment advice, just to be clear, but simply my personal strategy and my own plans. So this already gives you a broad overview of me as a person, what defines me to some extent, my goals, what I intend to do, and where I got my knowledge from. So, as I already mentioned, I have read a lot of books and also attended seminars and courses. The topic just really grabbed me at some point. I know I'm digressing, but I just want to quickly show you. So, which books have I actually read? Which ones can I recommend? One of them is Technical Analysis by John J. Murphy. This is a book that's also used for CFA and CFT, I would say. Is often used, I would say. So, for a certified technical analyst. The book actually serves as a foundation for that as well. Another book I just recently read is by Jim Rogers. It's called Commodities, the most attractive market in the world. How everyone can profit from oil, coffee, and the like. Otherwise, there's also Philip Fisher's The Professional Investment Strategy. Sorry, I'm trying to get the best possible shot with the camera. I've read this book as well. Even though my goal is a dividend strategy, I also enjoy reading from time to time. Books about dividends, growth, and sometimes not about growth stocks, because it's simply important to have and develop a broad horizon. What other books have I read? By Peter Lynch, One Up on Wall Street. So, exactly, this way you can see it better. And what else have I read? What else has opened my eyes a bit? By Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. However, those were my first books that I started with. And that was Rich Dad. I know maybe it's a controversial topic these days, I'm not sure. I actually started with the book Rich Dad. I'm not exactly sure to what extent the story and so on are actually true, because I think there were just a few rumors about it as well. And I don't want to comment any further on that now. But what still helped me was this book, Investment Guide, Where and How the Rich Really Invest. That book just ultimately opened my eyes completely in a way. It opened my eyes to how everything in the financial market works, at least to some extent, not just specifically in the financial market. But the book really opened my eyes when it comes to investing and even to the topic of saving. It just gave me a completely comprehensive overview. Just like Cash Flow Quadrant by Rich Dad, there are several quadrants that you divide into. There's the employee, the investor, and the entrepreneur. In other words, basically the manager, someone who runs something. As I said, in general, these books really opened my eyes, and I just found them very fascinating. And here too, they help you increase your financial IQ, also from Rich Dad. No matter what you think of him, or how you feel about him, or whatever else there is to it, I don't really know. It's also pretty irrelevant to me because the book simply opened my eyes when it comes to investing and to how others might really think about it. And for me, it was simply an eye-opener. That's about it. Now you've really gotten to know me as a person, what I plan to do over the years, and maybe how I got to where I am now. I would say this was a really detailed video. If there's anything else you want to know, feel free to write it in the comments. Otherwise, please like this video. It also helps the algorithm to keep growing and the channel, and I would be happy if you subscribed as well. Definitely check out my playlists too. I think they're very interesting. That's all for now. I wish you all successful investing and that your goals come true.